Picture this, it's 1970, and America is drowning in red, white, and blue everything. AMC, the scrappy underdog nobody took seriously, decides to build the most patriotic muscle car ever made. They paint it like Captain America's fever dream, stuff a massive 390 cubic inch V8 under the hood, and price it lower than a Mustang. The big three laughed, until this thing started destroying them on the street. 340 horsepower, a hood scoop you could see from space, and a name that sounded like a rejected G.I. Joe toy, the Rebel Machine. This is the story of one of the boldest AMCs ever built, and how Detroit forgot it even existed. Let's set the stage. By 1970, the muscle car wars were at their absolute peak. Ford, Chevy, and Dodge were throwing everything at the wall to see what stuck. Mustangs, Camaros, Challengers, Chargers. The big three owned the streets, the drag strips, and the American imagination. And then there was AMC, American Motors Corporation, the awkward kid at the cool kids table, desperately trying to matter. They had the Javelin, the AMX, some decent sedans, but nobody was taking them seriously. AMC was fourth place in a three-company race, but AMC had one advantage: desperation. When you're the underdog, you don't play it safe. You swing for the fences or you die trying. So in 1970, AMC's engineers and marketing department, probably fueled by equal parts ambition and madness, came up with a plan. They'd build a muscle car so loud, so fast, and so impossibly American that it couldn't be ignored. The result was the Rebel Machine, and it was everything the big three weren't expecting. First, let's talk about what made this thing special. Under that ridiculous hood scoop sat AMC's 390 cubic inch V8, the biggest, baddest engine they'd ever stuffed into a production car. 340 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. This wasn't some detuned grocery getter. This was AMC flexing every muscle they had. The engine was mated to a Hurst-shifted 4-speed manual transmission, a twin-grip differential, and heavy-duty suspension. AMC wasn't messing around. But here's where it gets interesting. AMC didn't just build a fast car, they built a statement. The Rebel Machine came standard, in a paint scheme that can only be described as aggressively patriotic. Red body, white stripe down the center, blue accents. A hood scoop so massive it needed its own zip code, and graphics that screamed machine in bold letters across the hood and sides. This wasn't subtle. This was AMC declaring war on good taste and winning. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine showing up to a stoplight in 1970 in your tasteful blue Mustang Mach 1 or your sleek black Camaro SS. You're feeling good. You've got 350, maybe 375 horsepower under the hood. And then, this rolls up next to you. A car that looks like Uncle Sam and Evel Knievel had a baby and raised it on protein shakes and aggression. The big three drivers must have been so confused. Now, let's talk performance. Because this is where AMC shocked everyone. 0 to 60 miles per hour, 6.5 seconds. Quarter mile, 14.4 seconds at 99 miles per hour. Those numbers put the Rebel Machine in direct competition with the Mustang Boss 302, the Camaro Z28, and the Plymouth Roadrunner. This wasn't just competitive. This was AMC saying, "We belong here," and backing it up with receipts. But here's the kicker, the price. While Ford was charging around $4,000 for a Boss 302, and Chevy wanted similar money for a Z28, AMC priced the Rebel Machine at approximately $3,500. That's right, cheaper than the competition, matched their performance, and wrapped in the most memorable paint job of the decade. On paper, this should have been a massive success. So what happened? Why isn't the Rebel Machine a household name like the Mustang or Camaro? Well, turns out there's a downside to making your car look like a 4th of July parade exploded on it. While AMC's engineers were building a legitimate performance machine, their marketing department had created something that was, let's be honest, impossible to take seriously. The paint scheme was so over the top that even patriotic Americans were like, maybe tone it down a bit? But here's what nobody tells you about why this car actually failed. See, here's the thing about muscle car buyers in 1970. They wanted to look cool. They wanted to impress their friends, they wanted to win street races and turn heads, but they also wanted some level of dignity. The Rebel Machine threw dignity out the window and replaced it with a hood scoop and an American flag paint job. It was the automotive equivalent of wearing a Stars and Stripes jumpsuit to a black tie event. Technically impressive, but socially questionable. AMC quickly realized they had a problem. The car was fast, proven. The price was right, undeniable. But the look? That was driving buyers away faster than the car could drive itself. So midway through the 1970 model year, AMC made the paint scheme optional. You could now order a Rebel Machine in normal colors, white, blue, red, or even, gasp, subdued tones. It was AMC admitting, okay, maybe we went a little too hard on the America thing. But by then, the damage was done. Dealers couldn't move the red, white, and blue models. Buyers who wanted performance had already gone to Ford, Chevy, or Dodge. And the people who would have appreciated AMC's underdog spirit. They'd never heard of the Rebel Machine because AMC's marketing budget was roughly equivalent to what Ford spent on coffee. And here's the brutal truth about why nobody even noticed AMC was in the fight. The big three could afford Super Bowl ads and magazine spreads. AMC had enthusiasm. Production numbers tell the whole story. In 1970, the only year the Rebel Machine was produced, AMC built just 2,326 units. That's it. For context, Chevrolet sold over 60,000 Camaro Z28s that same year. Ford moved over 40,000 Boss Mustangs. Even Plymouth's Roadrunner, a budget muscle car, sold over 40,000 units. The Rebel Machine didn't just lose the sales war. It got absolutely obliterated. AMC tried everything. They offered the car in different colors. They emphasized the performance specs. They dropped the price even lower. Nothing worked. By the end of 1970, AMC quietly discontinued the Rebel Machine and pretended it never happened. One of the boldest AMCs ever built, gone after 1 year. The big three didn't even notice it was missing. Now here's where the story gets interesting, or tragic, depending on how you look at it. Those buyers who did purchase Rebel Machines in 1970, they discovered something the big three didn't want to admit. This thing was legit. On the street, at the drag strip, even on road courses, the Rebel Machine held its own against anything Detroit threw at it. The 390 V8 was torquey, reliable, and surprisingly smooth. The handling, thanks to AMC's heavy-duty suspension, was better than expected. This wasn't just a fast car. It was a good car. But here's the cruel irony. The very thing that made the Rebel Machine special, that insane patriotic paint job, became the reason nobody remembers it. When people think 1970 muscle cars, they think Mustang, Camaro, Challenger, Charger. The Rebel Machine? It became a footnote, a weird experiment. The car that tried too hard and failed. AMC's boldest swing, and their biggest miss. Let's talk about what happened to AMC after this. Spoiler alert, it's not good. The Rebel Machine's failure convinced AMC executives that maybe competing directly with the big three was a losing strategy. So they pivoted. They started building practical cars. Economy cars, the Gremlin, the Pacer. Cars that were, let's be diplomatic, interesting. AMC stopped trying to be cool and started trying to survive. Wait until you hear what happened to these cars after AMC folded. AMC lasted until 1988 before being absorbed by Chrysler. The spirit that created the Rebel Machine, dead and buried. But wait, there's a redemption arc. Fast forward to today, and the Rebel Machine has become a cult classic. Those 2,326 cars? They're now sought-after collectibles. A well-preserved Rebel Machine in that original red, white, and blue paint? $50,000 to $100,000, sometimes more at auction. The very paint scheme that doomed it in 1970 is now the reason collectors want it in 2025. Think about that for a second. In 1970, you couldn't give these cars away. Dealers had them sitting on lots for months. Some got repainted just to move them, and now they're worth more than most new cars. The Rebel Machine went from embarrassing failure to vintage treasure in 50 years. If that's not the ultimate underdog story, I don't know what is. So what do we learn from the Rebel Machine? First, timing matters. AMC built a legitimately great muscle car, but they did it at a moment when subtlety was starting to matter. The outrageous, loud, aggressive muscle cars of 1970 were about to be replaced by the emissions-choked economy cars of the mid-70s. The Rebel Machine was the last gasp of an era. and it arrived just as everyone was running out of breath. Second, marketing matters more than engineering. The Rebel Machine proves you can build a car that matches the competition in every metric, and still fail if your marketing is wrong. AMC built a car for people who wanted to win races, but they marketed it to people who wanted to look like they raided a paint store on July 4th. Those are not the same customers. Third, and this is the big one, being fourth place sucks. AMC wasn't competing against Ford, Chevy, and Dodge on equal footing. They had smaller budgets, fewer dealers, less brand recognition, and zero margin for error. The big three could afford to build weird experimental cars and shrug if they failed. AMC? One failure like the Rebel Machine could tank the whole company. They were playing a different game with different rules, and losing. But here's the part that really matters about this car's engineering. Let's talk about the specs one more time, because they deserve respect. That 390 cubic inch V8, it wasn't exotic, but it was effective. 340 horsepower from a cast iron block that could handle abuse all day long. 430 pound-feet of torque that hit low in the rev range and pulled like a freight train. This wasn't Ferrari engineering. This was American brute force done right. The Hurst 4-speed manual was the same transmission you'd find in high-end Mopars and Fords. The twin-grip differential was AMC's version of a limited slip. No fancy name, just function. The suspension used heavy-duty springs and shocks that actually worked. Strip away the ridiculous paint, and you had a serious performance car that could run with plenty of legendary muscle cars on any given Sunday. But here's what makes the Rebel Machine truly special. It represented something pure. This was AMC saying, "We're going down swinging. No compromises, no half measures, no playing it safe. Just a big engine, a loud paint job, and a prayer that American buyers would appreciate the audacity." They didn't, at least not in 1970. But the intent? The spirit? That's what makes the Rebel Machine unforgettable. Compare that to what the big three were doing. Ford was building a dozen different Mustang variants, hedging every bet. Chevy was doing the same with Camaros. Dodge had so many Challenger options you needed a decoder ring to understand the lineup. They could afford to be cautious. AMC? AMC built one version of the Rebel Machine and said, "This is us, take it or leave it." Spoiler: America left it. But you have to respect the confidence. Take a moment. Breathe. We're almost there. So where does that leave us? The Rebel Machine is a perfect example of how history gets written by the winners. Ford won, so we remember the Boss Mustang. Chevy won, so we remember the Z28. Dodge won, so we remember the Challenger. AMC lost, so the Rebel Machine became a trivia answer. But losing doesn't mean you weren't good. It just means you didn't have the resources, the timing, or the luck to succeed. Today, the surviving Rebel Machines are treasured by collectors who understand what they represent. The last gasp of AMC's muscle car ambitions. Everyone that survives is a reminder that fourth place doesn't mean fourth best. It just means you ran out of money before you ran out of ideas. And in the muscle car wars of 1970, money was everything. The irony? If AMC had survived into the modern era, the Rebel Machine would be a heritage icon. Imagine AMC releasing a modern retro version with that insane paint scheme, modern performance, and a $7,000 discount versus the Mustang. It would be glorious. But AMC didn't survive. They're gone. And the Rebel Machine? It's a ghost. Fast, loud, patriotic, and forgotten by everyone except the people who truly know muscle car history. So here's your homework. Next time someone argues about the best muscle car of 1970, remind them about the Rebel Machine. 340 horsepower, around $3,500. Matched the Boss 302 and Z28. Undercut them on price, and was bolder than anything Detroit built that year. It failed commercially, sure, but it succeeded at being memorable. And in the muscle car world, that counts for something. This is Car Chronicles, where forgotten legends get the stories they deserve. If you enjoyed this deep dive into AMC's most audacious muscle car, hit that subscribe button for more underdog stories, corporate failures turned collector gold, and muscle car history. The big three don't want you to remember. Got a question? Which would you take? A safe Boss Mustang or a wild Rebel Machine? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll see you in the next episode. Don't be that guy who forgets the underdogs.